Let's just say that Grandma, in her mental confusion, decided to leave everything to us because we're the only ones who care for her, Benjamin explained with a smile in his voice. Dad, you're a genius, Olivia said admiringly. But we have to be careful. What if someone suspects something? No one's going to suspect anything, Eleanor reassured her, her voice smooth with cruel certainty. She has no friends, no family besides us. She's a lonely old woman who is completely dependent on us. Who's going to defend her? They were right. I had no close friends. I'd lost touch with most of them when I dedicated myself completely to taking care of Benjamin. I had no siblings. My parents had passed away years ago. I was completely vulnerable. But what they didn't know, what they had never bothered to find out, was that I had a secret. A secret that would completely change the balance of power in this situation. When my husband died, he left me with more than just love and memories. He left me with an inheritance I had kept hidden all these years. $2.2 million in an offshore bank account that only I knew about, plus 3 properties overseas that he had bought through savvy investments. I never told Benjamin about it because I wanted to be sure he loved me for who I was, not for what I had. I wanted him to build his own life, to be independent. But now I realized I had been a fool. He had never loved me. He had just been patiently waiting for me to die so he could inherit the little he thought I had. Well, Benjamin said finally, I think we're all clear. Tomorrow we put the plan in motion, and remember, in front of her, we have to keep being the loving family we've always been. Of course, Eleanor replied, the saccharine tone already back in her voice. I'm an excellent actress. I can fake loving her for a little while longer. I heard their footsteps retreating toward their rooms. I stayed there, frozen, with the doctor's note clutched in my hand. He was right. I had to run. But I wasn't going to run like a scared victim. I was going to run like a woman who had just woken up from a 45-year-long dream. I was going to run to plan the most perfect revenge they could ever imagine. I spent the rest of the night planning. I didn't sleep for a minute, but for the first time in months, I felt completely awake. I knew I had to act fast and intelligently. They had underestimated the senile old lady, but they would soon discover they had woken up the wrong woman. At 5 o'clock in the morning, when I was sure everyone was asleep, I silently took out my smallest suitcase and packed only the essentials. Personal documents, a few changes of clothes, my medications, and most importantly, the little notebook where I had written down all the details of my secret accounts. Before leaving, I decided to do something that would give me an advantage in the future. I took out my phone and activated the voice recorder. Then I pretended I had forgotten something and walked back through the house, making sure to pass near Benjamin and Eleanor's room. As I expected, they were already awake, whispering about their plans for the day. Eleanor was talking about making copies of my cards, while Benjamin mentioned his appointment with the lawyer to ask about the declaration of incompetence. Do you think she suspects anything? Eleanor asked, a thread of worry in her voice. Impossible, Benjamin replied. She's too old and trusting. Besides, what could she do? She has nowhere to go. She has no money of her own. She has no friends. We're all she has. It's pathetic, Eleanor added with contempt. A 70-year-old woman who is completely dependent on us. Sometimes I feel sorry for her, but then I remember she chose this life. She could have remarried after her husband died, but she chose to stay here being the perfect grandmother. And now she's going to pay for that decision, Benjamin concluded coldly. Perfect. I had recorded enough. After that, I put the phone away and finished getting ready to leave. I left a note on the kitchen table that said, "Gone to run some errands. I'll be back later. Martha." I knew they wouldn't suspect a thing. After all, a senile old woman going on a strategic escape wasn't a possibility they had considered. I took a cab to the nearest bank. It was Wednesday morning, and I knew I had a few hours before my family would realize something was wrong. At the bank, I withdrew a considerable amount of cash and verified that my secret accounts were intact. The teller, a young woman named Patricia, looked at me with curiosity when I asked to withdraw $5,000 in cash. "Are you sure, ma'am? That's a considerable amount to carry around in cash," she said with genuine concern. "Completely sure," I replied firmly. "I have some personal matters to take care of." After the bank, I took another cab to the most elegant hotel in the city. I knew I needed a place where I would feel safe while planning my next moves. The Grand Imperial Hotel was perfect, discreet, comfortable, and with services that would allow me to maintain my privacy. "How long will you be staying with us?" the receptionist, an elegant woman in her 40s, asked me. "I'm not sure," I replied. "It could be a week. It could be several months. It depends on how certain family matters unfold." She nodded with professional understanding and assigned me a suite on the 10th floor. As I went up in the elevator, I felt a mix of terror and excitement. For the first time in decades, I was making decisions just for myself. The suite was beautiful, spacious, with a view of the city, elegantly decorated, and equipped with everything I needed. I sat on the living room sofa and for the first time since the night before, allowed my emotions to overwhelm me. I cried. I cried for the 45 years I had dedicated to raising a son who saw me as an obstacle. I cried for the humiliations I had endured without realizing it. I cried for the woman I had been before I became the perfect grandmother they despised. But after crying, I wiped away my tears and began to plan. I took out my notebook and started making a list of everything I needed to do. First, contact my financial advisors overseas to activate my accounts. Second, hire the best lawyer in the city. Third, find a private investigator who could help me document everything my family had done and was planning to do. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, my phone started to ring. It was Benjamin. "Mom, where are you? It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and you haven't come back." His voice sounded worried, but I could detect the irritation beneath the concern. "I'm fine, son," I replied calmly. "I decided to take a day for myself. It's been a long time since I did that." "A day for yourself? What does that mean? Where exactly are you now?" His voice was clearly annoyed. "I'm in the city taking care of some things I needed to do," I lied partially. "Don't worry. I'll be back when I'm finished." "Mom, this isn't like you. You always let us know where you're going. Eleanor is worried and so is Olivia. We need to know where you are." For the first time in years, I detected something in his voice that surprised me. Panic. He wasn't worried about my well-being. He was worried because he had lost control over me. "You know what, Benjamin?" I said with a calmness that surprised me. "I'm 70 years old. I think I'm old enough to make my own decisions about where to go and what to do." There was a silence on the other end of the line. "Mom, you're scaring me. You don't sound like yourself. Are you taking your medications?" he asked. And in that question, I could hear the beginning of their strategy. He was already planting the seed that I was not mentally well. "I'm perfectly fine, son. I've never been better," I replied and hung up. I immediately turned off my phone. I knew they would call me obsessively, and I needed peace to do what I had to do. The war for my own life had begun. And this time the senile old lady was armed with the truth, a fortune they knew nothing about, and a fury they could not possibly imagine. Eleanor had cried, saying her mother was very ill and they needed to go and take care of her urgently. I had given them money for the trip, in addition to what they had already stolen with the fake credit cards. "Dr. Montgomery," I asked, my voice tight, "what else did your investigator discover? Your son Benjamin lost his job 8 months ago, but he never told you. He has been living off your savings and pension. We also discovered that he has already contacted 3 different doctors trying to find one who is willing to certify that you suffer from senile dementia." Each revelation was a deeper stab. Not only had they planned to rob me, but they had already been robbing me for months. Not only did they want to declare me insane, they had already started the process. "And my granddaughter, Olivia?" I asked, my voice breaking. "She also has her secrets, Mrs. Caldwell. She's 3 months pregnant, but she's lying to her parents about who the father is. Apparently, the real father is a married man of 50 who promised to leave his wife, but now doesn't want to know anything about the baby. Oh my God, I whispered. My granddaughter, the girl I had helped raise, was involved in a scandal that could destroy her future. There's more, Dr. Montgomery continued. Eleanor has been having an affair with your neighbor Dave for the past 2 years. My investigator has photographs and videos that prove it. Dave, Carol's husband? I asked, remembering the sweet woman who lived next door. That's right. Apparently, Eleanor and Dave meet at a motel on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons while Benjamin believes she is at her yoga class. The irony was brutal. While they were planning to destroy my life by accusing me of being crazy, each of them was living a lie that made them far worse than I could ever have imagined. Dr. Montgomery, I want you to document all of this, I told him with renewed determination. Every lie, every theft, every betrayal. I want to have evidence of everything. I want them to feel the walls closing in. Of course, Mrs. Caldwell, he replied. But I have a suggestion. Instead of confronting them immediately, what do you think of letting them dig their own grave a little deeper? That afternoon, I decided to do something I hadn't done in years. Buy new clothes. I went to the most elegant stores in the city and bought 3 beautiful dresses. An elegant black one, a vibrant red one, and an emerald green one that made me feel powerful. I also bought new shoes, a genuine leather handbag, and even got my hair done at the city's most exclusive salon. The stylist, a young woman named Sophia, worked on my hair for 3 hours. Ma'am, you have beautiful hair, she told me as she worked. Why have you neglected it so much? Because for a long time I thought it wasn't worth taking care of myself, I replied honestly. I thought my only function was to be the invisible grandmother who takes care of everyone else. Well, those days are over, Sophia declared firmly. When I'm done with you, you're going to look like the queen you've always been. And she was right. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't recognize the woman looking back at me. My hair had a modern, elegant cut with highlights that brought light to my face. I looked powerful. That night, having dinner in the hotel restaurant, I decided to call Benjamin. Mom, finally. Where the heck have you been? His voice sounded furious, not worried. Taking care of myself, son, I replied calmly. You know, I hadn't taken time for myself in years. It's been very revealing. Mom, this has to stop. You can't just disappear like this. We're your family. We have a right to know where you are. A right, I repeated, letting the word hang in the air. Since when does my family have a right over me? Since you started acting erratically, he replied. And there he was again, trying to plant the seed that I was mentally unstable. Erratic. Does it seem erratic to you that a 70-year-old woman decides to take a few days for herself? Yes, when that woman has never done anything like that before. Mom, I think you need to talk to a specialist. You're acting very strangely. A specialist? I asked, feigning confusion. What kind of specialist, Benjamin? A psychologist, Mom. Someone who can help you with these behavioral changes. Perfect. He was admitting his intentions on a call that I was recording. You know what, son? You're right. I do need specialized help, I told him. And I could hear his sigh of relief on the other end of the line. I'm glad you understand, Mom. Yes, I understand perfectly. I need a specialist in family fraud, a specialist in elder abuse, and a specialist in psychological manipulation, because that's exactly what you all have been doing to me. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Mom, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that I know everything, Benjamin. I know about the fake credit cards Eleanor took out in my name. I know about your plan to have me declared incompetent. I know about the doctors you've contacted. I know everything. Mom, that's ridiculous. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you really need medical help. You know what else I know, Benjamin? I know you lost your job 8 months ago and that you've been living off my money while lying to my face. I know about the trip to the Florida Keys that you paid for with my stolen money. I know many other things that are going to surprise you a lot when you see them in court. You're delirious, he said, but his voice no longer sounded sure. Delirious? Last night I heard you planning how to make me really go crazy by switching my medications. Is that a delusion too? This time the silence was even longer. Mom, come home. We can talk about this as a family. No, Benjamin, we are no longer family. A family doesn't betray you the way you betrayed me. A family doesn't plan the mental destruction of one of its members to steal their money. Mom, please. What I'm going to do is give you one chance, just one chance, to confess everything, apologize genuinely, and return every penny you have stolen from me. If you do that, maybe, just maybe, I can find a way to forgive you. We have nothing to confess, he replied, but his voice was trembling. Then I'll see you in court, son. Have a good night. I hung up the phone and for the first time in days I felt completely at peace. The war had been officially declared and I had all the weapons. The following days were an emotional roller coaster. My phone wouldn't stop ringing with desperate calls from my family. First, they tried the love tactic. Crying messages from Olivia saying how much she missed me, broken voices from Eleanor asking for forgiveness for any misunderstandings, and pleas from Benjamin begging me to come home to clear things up. When that strategy didn't work, they switched to fear and intimidation. Benjamin left me a voice message that said, "Mom, if you don't come back immediately, we're going to have to take legal measures to protect you from yourself. Your erratic behavior is forcing us to consider legal guardianship." But Dr. Graham Montgomery had prepared me for this. "Mrs. Caldwell, let them file the petition for guardianship," he advised me during one of our meetings. "It will be the best evidence we could have of their true intentions. Besides, we already have 3 independent psychiatrists who have certified that you are in perfect mental condition." Meanwhile, my private investigator had been very busy. Every day, I received new reports that left me more stunned than I thought possible. "Mrs. Caldwell," he told me during our Friday meeting, "your family has dramatically accelerated their plans since you disappeared. Yesterday, Benjamin went to your bank trying to access your accounts, saying that you had suffered a psychotic episode and that he needed to temporarily handle your finances." "And what did the bank tell him?" I asked. Fortunately, the bank manager is very professional. He told Benjamin that he would need official legal documentation to make any changes to your accounts. But Benjamin insisted so much that they had to ask him to leave. "There's more. Eleanor has been selling your belongings. Yesterday, I saw that she posted several of your antique furniture pieces on an online sales page. She also tried to sell your jewelry collection to a pawn shop, but the appraiser refused because the pieces obviously belonged to an older person, and Eleanor couldn't prove she had authorization to sell them." My heart pounded. Those jewels were gifts from my late husband, unique pieces he had collected over decades. "And my granddaughter Olivia?" I asked with a lump in my throat. "She has been the most active of all. She's been telling her friends that you are suffering from advanced Alzheimer's and that the family is considering having you committed. She has also been using this story to borrow money from several acquaintances, saying she needs funds to pay for her grandmother's medical care." Each revelation was more painful than the last. Not only were they stealing from me, they were destroying my reputation and using my supposed illness to manipulate other people. "But here's the most interesting part," the investigator continued. "Last night, the 3 of them had a meeting at your house with a man our sources identified as Paul Hayes, a document forger known in the city's criminal underworld." "A forger?" I asked, feeling my blood run cold. "Apparently, they are planning to create fake medical documents that certify your mental incompetence. Paul Hayes specializes in creating fictitious medical histories and forging doctors' signatures." This was much worse than I had imagined. Not only did they want to steal from me, they were willing to commit multiple serious crimes to do so. "Dr. Montgomery," I said over the phone that same afternoon, "I think it's time to accelerate our plans. If we wait any longer, They're going to have fake documents that could complicate things. I agree, Mrs. Caldwell. Are you ready for Phase 2 of our plan? Phase 2 was brilliant in its simplicity. Instead of confronting them directly, we were going to let them incriminate themselves publicly. At 8 at night, I started my first live stream. At first, there were only 3 viewers, but to my surprise, the number began to grow rapidly. Good evening, I began, looking directly at the camera. My name is Martha Caldwell. I'm 70 years old, and tonight I'm going to tell you a story that will change the way you see perfect families. In 20 minutes, I had over 500 viewers. By the end of the hour, there were over 3,000. I told them everything, from Benjamin's adoption to the secret note from Dr. Sterling, from the fraudulent credit cards to the plans to drive me crazy. I played the recordings, showed the documents I had compiled, and explained each betrayal in precise detail. The live comments were overwhelmingly supportive. What a horrible family. Mrs. Caldwell, you are a warrior. Sue them. Make them pay for everything. My grandmother went through something similar. Thank you for being so brave. But what really changed everything was when, in the middle of my stream, I received a live call. It was Olivia. Grandma, please turn off that stream, she pleaded. You're ruining our lives. I'm ruining your lives, I repeated so that all the viewers could hear. Don't you think you all ruined mine first? Grandma, everyone is watching us. My friends, my teachers, the whole school. I can't even leave the house. And how do you think I would feel if you had me committed to a nursing home against my will, declared mentally incompetent, and stole all my money? That was never going to happen. We were just exploring options. Exploring options? I shouted for the first time in days, losing the composure I had maintained. Olivia, I raised you since you were a baby. I changed your diapers. I took you to school. I took care of you when you were sick. And you were there smiling while your parents planned to destroy me. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening, but the live comments exploded. Tell her the truth. This girl is shameless. Mrs. Caldwell, don't let her manipulate you. Grandma, Olivia finally said in a broken voice. I need money for college and for other things. You thought what, Olivia? You thought I was your personal bank. You thought you could collaborate on a plan to drive me crazy and then use my money to pay for your studies. It's not like that. Then how is it? Explain it to the 4,000 people who are watching us right now. Explain to them why you told your friends you needed to borrow money to pay for my medical care while I was perfectly fine. Another silence, then barely audible. How do you know that? Because I'm not the senile old woman you think I am. I know everything, Olivia. Everything, including things about you that your parents don't know. What? What things? Things that could ruin your future much more than this stream could. She hung up immediately, but the damage was already done. The viewers had heard my granddaughter implicitly admit that she knew about the plans against me. 5 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time it was Benjamin, and he sounded absolutely furious. Mom, turn off that stream right now, he roared. Hello, Benjamin, I said sweetly. Do you want to talk to the 5,000 people who are watching us? This is defamation. I'm going to sue you for slander. Slander? Is it slander to play audio recordings where you all plan to drive me crazy? Is it slander to show bank statements that prove you've been stealing from me for months? Those recordings are illegal. Not in this state, son. And definitely not when they're made to prevent a crime. But tell me, do you want to explain to all these viewers why you paid a document forger $50,000 yesterday afternoon? The silence was so long, I thought he had hung up. How? How do you know that? Because Paul Hayes is an FBI informant. Benjamin, congratulations. Now you're not only being investigated for family fraud, but for federal conspiracy. You're lying. Want to bet? Check the news tomorrow morning. Or better yet, Wait for the federal agents to knock on your door. The live comments went wild. FBI. 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 This family is going to jail. Mrs. Caldwell is a detective. Justice for Grandma. Mom, Benjamin said in a broken voice, completely different from his fury before. Please stop this. We can still fix it. We're family, aren't we, Benjamin? I replied with genuine sadness. A family doesn't betray. A family doesn't steal. A family doesn't plan the mental destruction of one of its members. What you are is not a family. It's a criminal organization that shares a last name. We gave you 45 years of our lives. You didn't give me 45 years. I gave you 45 years of my life. I gave up everything for you. And you. You were just waiting for me to die to inherit what you thought I had. We need that money, Mom. And that's why you decided to drive me crazy. That's why you decided to steal from me. That's why you decided to destroy the last years of my life. It wasn't personal. Those 3 words hung in the air like a death sentence. It wasn't personal. 45 years of love, sacrifice, and dedication. And to him, it wasn't personal. You're right, Benjamin, I said finally. It wasn't personal for you all, and from now on it won't be personal for me either. I'll see you in court. I hung up and looked at the camera. And that, dear viewers, was my family, I said with a sad smile. Tomorrow, I'll continue with this story. Good night. I ended the stream with over 7,000 viewers and hundreds of messages of support. For the first time in weeks, I went to sleep feeling that I was not alone in this battle. The next morning, I woke up with my phone exploding with notifications. My live stream had gone viral. I had thousands of messages of support, hundreds of interview requests from media outlets, and surprisingly, dozens of messages from other older people who had gone through similar situations. Mrs. Caldwell, my son did the exact same thing. Thank you for being brave and telling your story. You've inspired me to take action. Another said, I'm a lawyer specializing in elder abuse. Your case is textbook. If you need additional help, I'm at your disposal at no cost. But the message that impacted me the most was from a woman named Carol Sterling. Mrs. Caldwell. I'm a social worker. Just yesterday, I prevented a family from having their 75-year-old father committed after seeing your stream. Your courage is saving other grandparents. Dr. Montgomery called me at 9 in the morning. Mrs. Caldwell, I have news that will change everything, he said with a smile I hadn't seen before. The FBI arrested Paul Hayes last night, and in his interrogation, he confessed everything about the transaction with your family. Everything. Not only did he admit that Benjamin paid him to forge medical documents, but he also revealed that your family asked him to create a fake will in your name, leaving everything to them and declaring that you were mentally incompetent when you signed it. I felt as if I had been punched in the stomach. A fake will. Apparently, the plan was much more elaborate than we thought. They were going to use the fake medical documents to have you committed. Then they would present the forged will and finally wait for you to die in the nursing home to legally inherit everything. My God, I whispered. How long had they been planning this? According to Paul Hayes, Eleanor first contacted him 4 months ago. This was not a desperate last-minute decision. It was a calculated and premeditated conspiracy. That afternoon, while I was processing this new information in my hotel suite, I received an unexpected call. It was Olivia, and for the first time in weeks, her voice sounded genuinely broken. Grandma, can we please talk? Just you and me. What for, Olivia? For you to lie to me again? For you to try to manipulate me emotionally? No, Grandma. To tell you the truth. The whole truth. I can't take this anymore. Something in her voice made me hesitate. I decided to take a risk. Okay, but it will be in a public place with witnesses, and I'm going to record the entire conversation. Whatever you want, just please. We met at the cafe in the hotel lobby. Olivia arrived with eyes swollen from crying, dressed carelessly, very different from the vain girl I knew. "Grandma," she began before I could say anything. "You have to know that I never wanted things to go this far." "How far, Olivia? How far did you think was acceptable?" "At first, Mom and Dad just talked about convincing you to move to a luxury nursing home. They said it would be better for you, that you would have the company of people your own age. And what did you think?" I thought maybe they were right. The house is very big for you alone, and sometimes you seemed lonely." She stopped and looked me in the eyes. "But that was before I knew about the money." "What money?" "They didn't know about my secret accounts." "No, but they knew about your pension, about the savings you had in the local bank, about the value of the house. Mom had been investigating for months, going through your papers when you weren't home. She would call your bank pretending to be you. She even went to see your old boss to ask about your retirement pension." Each revelation was a deeper stab. "And when they decided it wasn't enough to just convince me?" Olivia began to cry. "When Mom found out that you could live another 20 years, she said she couldn't wait that long, that she needed the money now." "What did she need the money for so urgently?" "To pay Dad's debts. He lost a lot of money on sports betting over the past 2 years. He owes over $100,000 to some very dangerous people." Another shocking revelation. Benjamin had not only lost his job, he was a compulsive gambler with dangerous debts. "And what part did you play in all of this?" I needed money for college and for other things." She unconsciously touched her belly. "Other things like what, Olivia?" "I'm pregnant, Grandma," she confessed finally. "The father is. He's a married man who doesn't want to know anything about the baby. I need money to decide what to do." My heart broke for my granddaughter, but I also felt a deep rage. "And that's why you decided to participate in a plan to drive me crazy." "I didn't know they wanted to drive you crazy," she shouted, attracting glances from other cafe customers. "I just thought they wanted a doctor to say you needed special care." "What's the difference, Olivia?" I don't know. I guess there isn't a difference." She cried in silence for a few minutes. "Grandma, when you left the house, everything fell apart. Dad and Mom do nothing but fight. Mom says it's all Dad's fault for gambling. Dad says it's all Mom's fault for being too ambitious. And I'm in the middle, pregnant and terrified. And now, what do you want from me?" I want you to forgive me. And I want you to know that if you testify against Mom and Dad, I'm going to tell the truth. Everything I know, everything I saw, everything I heard." I remained silent, processing this unexpected offer. "Why would you change sides now, Olivia?" "Because last night, Dad told me that if everything goes wrong, they're going to say that I was the one who had the idea to steal your jewels. They're going to say that I manipulated them into doing it because I needed money for drugs." "Drugs? I don't do drugs, Grandma. But Dad says it's more credible to blame the rebellious teenager than to admit that they planned everything." The final betrayal. Not only had they betrayed me, but now they were willing to betray their own daughter to save themselves. "Do you have proof of what you're telling me?" Olivia took out her phone. "I have recordings of all their fights since you left. I have text messages where they plan to blame me. I have videos of Mom counting the money she got from selling your jewels." "Why did you record all of that?" "Because a week ago, I realized that when all this is over, they're going to abandon me, too. I'm underage. I'm pregnant. And I have no money. They're going to need a scapegoat. And that scapegoat is going to be me." I looked at her intently, trying to determine if this was another manipulation or if I was finally hearing the truth. "Olivia, if you decide to testify against your parents, your life will change forever. Your relationship with them will be completely over." "My relationship with them is already over, Grandma. From the moment they decided to use me as part of their plan against you, and then decided to sacrifice me to save themselves." "And what do you want in exchange for your testimony?" I want you to help me finish high school. I want you to help me make the right decision about my pregnancy. And I want you to teach me how to be a strong woman like you." For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of the old connection I had had with my granddaughter. "Olivia, if you do this, if you help me get justice, I'm not only going to help you with high school and with your situation. I'm going to teach you something much more valuable." "What?" "I'm going to teach you that real family is not defined by blood, but by loyalty, respect, and genuine love. And that sometimes protecting yourself means moving away from toxic people, even if you share their last name." Olivia extended her hand across the table. "Deal, Grandma." I shook her hand, knowing that this moment would mark the beginning of the end for Benjamin and Eleanor. "Deal, my girl. But now you're my ally, and allies protect each other. Are you ready for that responsibility? More ready than I've ever been for anything in my life. And I'm in the middle, pregnant and terrified." I let her cry for a moment, the sound a stark contrast to the cold, calculating girl I'd heard on the recording. This was real. This was the child I'd loved, drowning in the mess her parents had made. "And now, what do you want from me?" I want you to forgive me. And I want you to know that if you testify against Mom and Dad, I'm going to tell the truth. Everything I know, everything I saw, everything I heard." I studied her face, the tremor in her hands as she clutched her tea. This wasn't just a gambit. This was a terrified teenager realizing the only life raft was the person she'd helped push overboard. "Why would you change sides now, Olivia?" "Because last night," she whispered, leaning forward, "Dad told me that if everything goes wrong, they're going to say that I was the one who had the idea to steal your jewels. That I manipulated them because I needed money for drugs." "Drugs? Grandma. I've never." Her voice hitched. "He says it's more believable to blame the messed up teenager. I'm their exit strategy. The final, cruelest calculation. They would sacrifice their own child to save their skins." "Do you have proof of what you're telling me?" Olivia pulled out her phone, her fingers shaking. "I have recordings. Of all their fights since you left. Texts where they talk about pinning it on me. A video of Mom counting the cash from your jewelry. I started saving everything after I heard them planning it. I knew I'd need it." "Why, Olivia? Why record your own parents?" "Because a week ago, I realized they don't love me either," she said, the words flat and final. "Not really. I'm just part of the plan. And when the plan fails, I'm disposable. I'm underage, pregnant, and broke. I'm the perfect scapegoat." I looked at her, really looked, past the rebellion, past the complicity, to the raw fear underneath. My anger didn't vanish, but it made room for something else. A fierce, protective clarity. "Olivia, if you do this, if you help me bring them to justice, your life will change forever. There's no going back." "My life already changed forever," she said, meeting my gaze. "When they decided to use me against you, and then decided to throw me to the wolves. There's no back to go to. And what do you want in exchange for your testimony?" "I want to finish high school. I want help figuring out this." She gestured to her belly, her face a mask of confusion and fear. "And I want you to teach me how to be a strong woman. Like you." For the first time since reading Dr. Sterling's note, I felt a crack in the icy fortress around my heart. Not forgiveness, not yet. But the possibility of something new being built from the rubble. "Olivia, if you do this, if you stand with me, I will help you. Not because of a deal. Because you will have earned it. I will teach you that real family isn't defined by blood or shared lies. It's built on loyalty, respect, and the courage to do what's right, even when it costs you everything." She reached her hand across the small cafe table. It was the same hand that had hidden papers, that had probably taken money meant for me. But it was offered now in honesty. "Deal, Grandma." I took it. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Deal, my girl. But understand this. You are now my ally. And allies protect each other. No more lies. No more secrets between us. Are you ready for that responsibility? She didn't hesitate. More ready than I've ever been for anything in my life. The day of the trial arrived not with fanfare, but with a quiet, grim resolution. The courtroom was packed. My story, amplified by the live streams and media coverage, had become a flashpoint. There were reporters, cameras, and in the back, a quiet group of seniors from a local assisted living facility, there in silent solidarity. Benjamin and Eleanor sat at the defense table with their expensive, slick lawyer. They looked hollowed out, the strain of the past months etched deep. Benjamin wouldn't meet my eyes. Eleanor stared straight ahead, her jaw tight. Olivia sat beside me, at the prosecution's table. She was pale but composed, her hand resting protectively over her still flat stomach. The trial was a methodical dismantling of their perfect family facade. The prosecution presented the recordings, their voices cold and calculating in the quiet kitchen. They showed the bank statements, the credit card applications, the pawn shop receipts. They introduced the evidence from the FBI, the recordings of Benjamin bargaining with Paul Hayes, the forger turned informant. But the most damning moment came when Olivia took the stand. Under the gentle questioning of the prosecutor, she told her story. Not as a victim, but as a witness. She described the gradual shift in her parents' conversations, from what's best for grandma, to how to get what's ours. She told them about the fake trip to the Florida Keys, paid for with my money. She described her father's gambling debts, her mother's affair. And finally, her voice never breaking, she told the court about the night they decided to make her the fall girl. When the defense attorney cross-examined her, trying to paint her as a liar seeking revenge and a payout, Olivia didn't flinch. Isn't it true, Miss Caldwell, that your grandmother has promised you financial support in exchange for your testimony today? My grandmother has promised me safety, Olivia corrected, her voice clear. She's promised me a chance to build a real life. That's different from a payout. I'm not being paid to tell the truth. I'm being protected because I finally had the courage to tell it. And this sudden courage, it conveniently appeared once you realized you were pregnant and needed resources, correct? A flash of the old Olivia's fire appeared in her eyes. My courage appeared when I realized the people who were supposed to love me were planning to destroy the only person who ever truly did, and then frame me for it. My pregnancy made me realize I never want to bring a child into the kind of family I was raised in. When it was my turn to testify, I felt a profound calm. I looked at Benjamin as I spoke, not with hatred, but with a sorrow so deep it was like gazing into a canyon. Mrs. Caldwell, the prosecutor asked, can you describe the moment you realized your family was not what you believed? The moment I read Dr. Sterling's note, I said. But the deeper moment came later. It was when I heard my son say, about destroying my mind and my life. It wasn't personal. I paused, letting the words echo in the silent room. 45 years of my love, my labor, my joy, my worry, reduced to something that wasn't even personal. That's when I knew the family I loved had never existed at all. The defense had little to work with. They tried to portray me as a wealthy, eccentric woman exaggerating family squabbles. But the evidence was a mountain, and Olivia's testimony was the peak no one could ignore. The jury was out for less than 4 hours. Guilty. On all major counts, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, fraud, forgery, attempted larceny. Benjamin was sentenced to 12 years in a federal penitentiary. Eleanor received 10. Their lawyer's last-minute deal for a lighter sentence in exchange for a guilty plea was rejected by the judge, who cited the calculated, cold-hearted, and protracted nature of the conspiracy. As the bailiffs led them away, Benjamin finally looked at me. His eyes were empty, not of sadness, but of understanding. He saw now what he had lost, not the money, but the person who would have given him everything, freely, until her last breath. Eleanor didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, the sun was shining. Reporters swarmed, but Dr. Montgomery and a court officer helped Olivia and me to a waiting car. Where to, Mrs. Caldwell? The driver asked. I looked at Olivia, who was leaning her head against the window, exhausted. Home, I said. But home was no longer the house full of ghosts and betrayal. In the months following the trial, I sold it. With Olivia's input, we bought a smaller, brighter place on the other side of town, with a room for the baby and a garden. We used a fraction of the hidden inheritance to set up a trust for Olivia's education and the child's future. The rest, along with the proceeds from the overseas properties, became the foundation for the Caldwell Trust, dedicated to preventing elder financial abuse and providing legal support for its victims. Olivia graduated high school with honors. She decided to have the baby, a little girl she named Hope. She's studying social work part-time, determined to help others caught in toxic family systems. We don't talk about forgiveness often. Some wounds are too deep for that word. But we talk about building. We talk about boundaries. We talk about the kind of love that doesn't demand sacrifice, but fosters strength. Benjamin and Eleanor write letters from prison, sometimes. They are full of blame, then self-pity, then desperate pleas. I don't read them anymore. Olivia reads hers once, then throws them away. They're still trying to manipulate, she said one day after shredding a particularly long one from Eleanor. They think because we won, we must have softened. No, I said, pruning a rose bush in our garden. We didn't soften. We solidified. The secret wasn't the money. It was the woman I had forgotten I was. The one who could survive the unthinkable, not just with resilience, but with grace. The one who could look at the ruins of the family she built and choose to build something true in its place, with a one person brave enough to break the cycle and stand beside her. Dr. Sterling checks in occasionally, always discreetly. The last time over tea, he said, "You know, Martha, I slipped that note because I couldn't live with my conscience if I didn't. But I never imagined you would, well, become a force of nature." I didn't either, Elliot, I replied, smiling. But it turns out, when someone tries to bury you, they never expect you to be a seed. At 71, my life is nothing like I planned. It's smaller, quieter, and more real. The love I give now is not a blanket smothering everything in its path, but a focused light, warm and clear. It shines on my granddaughter, on my great-granddaughter, on the work of my foundation, and finally, after a lifetime, it shines on me. And that, I have learned, is the most powerful secret of all. The price was high, but the peace it bought me is priceless. Last Tuesday, Olivia brought home her final exam results. She placed second in her class. We celebrated with homemade lemonade in the garden, the late afternoon sun painting everything gold. She was quiet for a long time, watching the bees hum around the lavender. "Grandma," she said, her voice soft, "do you ever miss the way things were before? The big house, the big family dinners, all of it." I set my glass down, considering. I miss the idea of it, I said honestly. The picture I had in my head of what we were. I don't miss the lies. I don't miss the fear. I don't miss feeling like a guest in my own life, waiting for the eviction notice. She nodded, understanding more than a girl her age should. Dad wrote to me again. He says he's sorry. That he was weak. That Mom pushed him into it. I took her hand. It was warm and strong, no longer the small, trusting grip of the child I'd raised. "What do you think?" "I think," she said, her gaze steady, "that weakness is a choice. And so is cruelty. He made his choices. Every single day for years." She looked at our joined hands, then back at me. "I'm making different ones. That's the legacy now. Not the money, not the property, not the bitter ashes of a betrayed past. It's the choice we make every morning to build something true, however small it may seem." My secret wasn't just the money in offshore accounts. It was the resilience I'd forgotten I possessed, the fierce love for myself that I'd buried under a mountain of duty. The scandal has faded from the headlines. My foundation is small but growing. We host support groups in the community center. We have a hotline. Sometimes, an elderly person will call, their voice trembling with the same confusion and terror I once felt. I tell them my story. I tell them about the doctor's note, the fall, the hard, beautiful climb out. I tell them it's never too late to run, not just away from something, but towards yourself. And sometimes, when I look at Olivia rocking her daughter, Hope, to sleep, or see the determined set of her jaw as she studies her law books, I think of that terrified girl in the cafe. We are both works in progress, mending what was broken with stronger materials. Our family tree now has a new branch, grown not from obligation or blood, but from a conscious, daily choice to love and protect. So no, I don't regret adopting Benjamin. I regret the blindness, not the love. The love was real. Mine was. And in learning to redirect that love, to Olivia, to Hope, to the strangers my foundation helps, and most critically, back to myself, I found a victory far greater than any verdict. The final lesson, the one that matters most, is this. You are never too old, never too invested, never too kind to draw a line in the sand and say, no more. This is where I save myself. And in that saving, you might just save someone else, too.